Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome President of the United States Conference of Mayors, Mayor of Miami, Francis Suarez.
I guess this is my chair. How's everyone doing today? All right, Starbucks, where are you? We know you're out there somewhere. I already got my fix. Don't worry about it. They said, okay, no more coffee jokes. How's everyone doing? So everyone's doing well. Everyone's getting their breakfast. That's great. Today, we're going to kick off the day with an incredible conversation with someone who's become a great friend. And really, it was an amazing opportunity to make sure that this conference reflects what we know we are, which is a bipartisan group of mayors across this country looking for solutions. And so when we called Leader McCarthy and asked him to participate and have a conversation with us, he immediately said yes. And so without further ado, I'd like to introduce my good friend, the minority leader of the Republican Party, Kevin McCarthy. Thanks so much.
Good morning, all.
So first of all, Mr. Leader, thank you so much for saying yes.
No, congratulations.
First step always.
Yeah.
We met in an interesting fashion, and I think one cool way to start this off is to sort of talk about the origin story of how you and I became friends and how we met. And so I'll let you tell the story. You tell it better than I do.
Well, we met in an interesting way, not by the phone or anything else. He was just stealing all these jobs from California, but like all the other places here. He put that tweet out like, how can I help? And what I thought from a perspective is, how interesting is that? Just somebody that's offering, and I didn't know who he was, didn't know his politics or anything else, but I thought that's a great approach. And I called him up and said, I'd like to get together because I like how you just say, how can I help? This is what we got to find in this country. How do we collaborate? How do we find solutions? And really in a time of COVID, in a time where people can live anywhere, I was frustrated within my own state, not my city. I love my city. But people were leaving, and at the very beginning, I'm from California. It was people of wealth that were leaving, but now my neighbors were leaving because they were unhappy. And they were looking for other places. And what was interesting in this approach was, here was a mayor who people were coming and they were complaining about California, and he wasn't bashing, he wasn't doing anything else, he just said, how could I help? And I thought that was just a great approach. When I spent some time with you, I love your perspective. So,
thank you, Leader. It's funny, all of a sudden, and I'll put a little flesh on the bone of the story. Twitter, which is, the social media app, some of you may have heard of. All of a sudden, I get this random DM, and I had actually put a billboard in San Francisco that said, hey, if you're thinking of moving to Miami, DM me. And I get a random DM from the Leader. So I said, maybe he's moving to Miami, I don't know. But it was great. He came, and we had a very similar sit-down to the one we're having now, what I call a cafecito tech talk. And I think it's important because I've often said, as a leader in your city, you have a responsibility to run your government as a corporation, a business, right? We have to run the federal government. But I think we have, additional responsibilities to lead, to inspire, to try to help build ecosystems. And so, for me, we started these Cafecito Tech Talks, and the Leader was kind enough to come to Miami, which he'll be in, I think, tomorrow or later today. And he, we had this conversation, and it wasn't, to his point, it wasn't partisan, it wasn't, divisive at all. It was something that was meant completely to have an honest conversation about what works, what doesn't work, what works in cities. And so it was wonderful. But I often say, if you don't tell your story, this is a message for the mayors, if you don't tell your story, somebody else is going to tell your story, and you're not going to like their version of it. So,
and I'll tell you my impression. When I was going there, I didn't know his affiliation. I didn't know what his politics were. But what was interesting, and we never really talked that, he took me through the mayor's office. That's where we met. And what I walked away with, he could tell me the heritage of not just the city, but also what a great background with his father being the first Cuban mayor, but just the culture of the entire city. And then when we sat and talked, he had the culture, but he was taking the tradition of the past and apply it to a changing future. Whereas, yes, a lot of things were coming to Miami, some because of him, but some just because of what other people were doing. And he was concerned about, how do I build it right? Let me learn from things that you did right, but let me learn from your mistakes. So if we're going to bring tech people in, that's great. But what does that do to the tradition here? How can they be involved? And what's the next step? Why are tech people now leaving? I mean, what pushed them away? And I just felt that was very refreshing. And so I took the next step where, when we left, I started setting up Zoom calls with people in California who were my friends, who were disgruntled as well. And I said, you ought to talk to them, right? Because he was planning what the future held if people were going to come, but he was planning in a way that those who were already there could be a part of it, that it wasn't just outside people.
Yeah, it really so much appreciated. I think what happens is, you know, we in public service, we get caricatured by the press oftentimes, right? And what happens is, when you get to know somebody, a human being, a person, you get to know who they are. You get to you laugh with them. You share common experiences, and there's so much more in this world, in this country, that binds us than separates us. But if you were to listen to the news, all you would hear are the things that we may not agree with, or the things that try to push us away from each other. And so I found it very refreshing, and the friendship has been from that perspective. I want to talk a little bit about my origin story and your origin story in the context of, you know, how we continue to have success and prosperity in this country. My dad was exiled from Cuba, his country of birth, because a charismatic leader there many years ago said, hey, if we just take over everyone's business, we take over everyone's property, don't worry, we'll take care of it. We will guarantee equality for everyone. And the only equality that was delivered was equal misery for all of the people of Cuba. And so my dad came here. He was, I think he was 7 years old, 12 years old. And he was the ninth of 14 kids, 14-person family. And he came to D.C. He actually emigrated to D.C., which is super cold, by the way. I think it was like 18 degrees last night. I was smoking a cigar, and why would anybody want to live here? So I apologize for the time that you have to live here. And, you know, he got a full scholarship to high school, full scholarship, presidential scholarship to college, and 2 graduate degrees from Harvard, written 8 books, speaks 4 or 5 languages, the quintessential American dream. Isn't that what we're supposed to be about?
Mm-hmm. And before I tell you mine, I first want to thank you all. You probably do the hardest job of anybody who's elected. But you do it in a manner.
You guys, we'll take that. We'll take
Look,
that.
You're closest to the people. People think you're responsible for everything, from the streets to the garbage to foreign policy to the kids' education. And and by different mayors, you have different powers. And it's not viewed as partisan as well, but you're also the great laboratories and the time and place in which you're serving. You're serving during a pandemic, but you're serving during a transformational time of our nation. Because our nation is now finding, through technology and others, we don't need to live in one place or the other. So there are big cities that before, people just had to come and they would put up with whatever. But now people are making decisions different on the quality of life and other things that they don't have to be there, so they can make a different choice. So it really is almost a competition of where to be. And you're not in competition with each other, but there's got to be a basis of what people look to, and small things become bigger things. Look, in my world of politics, no teacher I ever had thought I could be elected to anything, and my family probably didn't either. And to be fair, I grew up in a family of all Democrats, and I happen to be a Republican. I'm the youngest in the family. I'm Irish and Italian, so we had the best fights in the neighborhood. No one was better than us. I got out of high school. My folks didn't have wealth, so I couldn't go away to college, so I just went to junior college, right? But I always instilled in me a work ethic, and I would go to this one liquor store. You could figure out why I went there. But the guy also had a car dealer's license. I grew up in Bakersfield, California. I can't get elected anywhere else. And so I would pay him $100 to take me to the LA car auctions where all the dealers would bring their trade-ins, and I would buy and sell cars, and I would flip them to pay my way through college. Now, I found out later it's illegal, but I did not know that while I was because you had to have a different license. And when you're going to community college, what do? On the weekends, you go away visit your friends who are away at college, right? My best friend was at Stanford, SC, and San Diego. So this weekend, I was going to go to San Diego State to visit some buddies. So I go to the grocery store to cash a check so I have some cash for the weekend. It's 1985. I'm 20 years old. The day before the lottery started in California. So I'm cashing this check, I buy a lottery ticket, and I won the lottery. True story, right? But they didn't have lotto. So put yourself in my place. You're 20 years old. It's Friday night, it's 1985, and you win $5,000 in 85 money, right? But you end up 10 minutes from Tijuana by the end of the night, right? So I come back, I take my folks to dinner, give my brother and sister each $100, and I take the majority of the rest of the money, I put it in one stock, because I like to take risk. I made 30% of my money in 6 weeks. So the semester comes, I take a break. I go and I try to buy a franchise, but no one will sell me one because I'm 20 years old. Another thing is I never give up. So I go and I open a deli. And I even built the counter in my dad's garage. There's 3 lessons I learned as a small business, and you always have to remember this with all your, you're the first to work, last to leave, last to be paid. I'm out of money. I go put on my credit card. I buy this big sign about my restaurant, vinyl. I put it outside. I'm in there early in the morning, like 4 employees cutting up the meat and the salads. And this pickup truck from the city pulls up, and they're knocking on the glass door. 2 hours before I'm open, I bet they want to give me a key to the city, right? The guy wanted to give me a ticket. He wanted to give me a ticket for my sign because it was past 7 days. And I said, I don't get this. I spend money to buy a sign, to bring more people in, to buy sandwiches, to pay your salary. I want you to work with me, not against me. But you know what? A food critic came in. My business did really well. So now I had enough money that I paid my whole way through college, and I wouldn't have to work, and no one in my family had finished 4-year degrees. So I sell my business. I'm going to college, and then the paper said, be a summer intern in Washington, D.C. with the local congressman. Didn't know the guy, but thought he'd be lucky to have me, so I applied. You know what he did? He turned me down. But this is the end of the story. I am now elected to the seat I couldn't get an internship for. Only in America could that happen. And so,
That's beautiful. And I often think, you don't know someone until you know their story. And I think it humanizes us, and it makes people understand the adversity, the will to succeed, the persistence, and the true Americanism, which I always say, every single person deep inside of themselves has whatever their vision is of the American dream. It's different for everybody. It's not necessarily the white picket fence for every single person, but we all find a way to get there, and it's incredible. So, I like to think as Miami, we follow sort of 3 simple rules, right? And people often ask me, well, how is this happening in Miami? And of course, like you said, there are some macro factors that are not in our control. What is in our control? We've tried to keep taxes low. We've kept taxes at the 1960s level in terms of our millage rate. And what's happened? Our budget has doubled in size, okay? So people think you got to sort of raise taxes to generate more income, more revenue. And we've seen the exact opposite. As we've lowered taxes, more investments come in, more people have decided to live there, and so we have actually more resources to deal with things like homelessness, for example. Second thing we did was, and we talked about this in our cafecito, we focused on public safety. I know that it's become controversial nowadays to talk about public safety, and certainly we believe in officer accountability and giving them the tools which we've gotten for them to be accountable. But police officers in this country now are not well paid. Right? They're asked to do more and more and more, right? More than just be a police officer, be in the social settings, and they've never had more scrutiny, than ever before. Their lives are at risk on the one hand, but then their lives are also at risk if they make a mistake in a split second on the other hand. So it's just really, really tough. And so as we've invested in our police departments, we saw a shocking correlation. Crime went down. Mm-hmm. Shocking correlation, right? That was a joke. And then the third thing is, and something that we talked a lot about, is we leaned into innovation. You are a very innovative, you're pro-innovation, you're pro-tech. And when my 3-year-old daughter, uses her pacifier, to take a selfie, I know that we're stuck with tech, whether we like it or not, whether it's big tech or small tech, or whether it's, all the issues that become partisan around tech. You can talk about them till you're blue in the face. We're not giving our iPhones away. We're not putting them back. So how do you see that sort of city building formula in the context of the mass migration that we've seen of people migrating to states like Florida and cities like Miami?
Well, what's happening is technology allows us that we can live anywhere. A lot of people would think they've got to move away, but now with the pandemic, that transformed things. So you could have meetings, different places, you don't have to travel all the time. I will tell you that regardless of party, wherever else, crime is going to be probably the biggest issue in any election. It doesn't matter, you want to feel safe, and it doesn't matter what part of the city you're in. And this is really the core. You've got to feel safe. Your children have to feel safe, and others. I look at technology in a way to innovate, but not to innovate a better customer service. You know, unfortunately, in federal government, the government gets so big it's difficult, right? I envy your ability to make other decisions and make things happen faster. I've really been trying to innovate the VA. You would think that would be the place that would be least political or controversial. Uber will let you get a driver, you rate the driver can rate you, you get the documents all right there. And then I sit around and I see veterans were dying because they're trying to call on a phone and a call center doesn't work. But if we brought technology, and lots of times in government, you think you have to build a whole new software system. No, let's start taking things off the shelf. But what would happen there is data is king. If somebody has their own personal ability to make an appointment, to get a permit, things are faster. And also what COVID had done for people personally being able to do Zoom and others, you're going to have to find government be able to do that way too. But your customer service is better for the constituent. You're having more data, and you're going to have more efficiency within government that you can streamline. And the duplication so many times, and when you hear those stories with one person tells a story, you're mayor, but you don't know everything that's happening and everything that built upon bureaucracy before. But then you hear some horror story where somebody tried forever and they were polite and they went through the system and they've been waiting a year for something. You don't want that to happen. If you have greater technology, you'll have the data of where you're stovepiping, you'll have the data of where the customer service is, you'll have the data of what people are actually asking for instead of just going by a phone. And I think that will open up a lot. And you're going to have generationals, those who will want to deal with it and those who might not. But you know, in my church, we do 3 different services. And the songs we sing in the first service and the last service are catered to those who are coming. And your city is a microcosm. It's different. And that's what I think would really save you money, but also provide you. And I'm a big believer, and this is where we should really work together, because we're going to want to be doing a lot about crime, but it's also a local issue. I think community policing is so much better. I mean, in our city, we built a fire station and police station in neighborhoods now. So it's not looked as police. The officer, her or him,
your neighbor.
Their children are going to the same schools as us. We know each other, right? We're in the neighborhood. And that's the only way, so we're not having this adversary play. And for these poor officers, fear they're going to be sued, fear they're going to get harassed, and they're coming in to protect. Look, my father was a firefighter, so I have a special place for any of the first responders. I know what they go through. And it's not a job, it's a way of life.
So I don't know if anybody here has ever been to a city called Marble, North Carolina. Just by a show of hands, anybody Marble, North Carolina? I don't think so. All right, it was my first time there last year. It was one of the most amazing things I've ever seen. I went to a company that wanted to show me a Bitcoin mining facility in Marble, North Carolina. So now I got to tell you a little bit about Marble, North Carolina. Marble, North Carolina had a population of 40,000, and their whole entire population revolved around a Levi's manufacturing plant. And as you can imagine, in the Industrial Revolution, jobs went where costs were lowest, right? So that Levi's plant was shipped off to China, right? And so the population of Marble, North Carolina went from 40,000 to 400 when that plant closed, 400. And just recently, China banned mining, and just recently, China banned Bitcoin. And so what we're seeing now in Marble, North Carolina is what I call a tech industrial revolution. In other words, the jobs that were left in that plant was repurposed. It was turned into a Bitcoin mining facility. By the way, carbon neutral, because there's a lot of discussion about ESG concerns around Bitcoin mining, but this is done completely carbon neutral. And I know that concepts like Web 3.0, concepts like crypto, and concepts like NFT are very mystifying to many people. But they are the wave of the future. I mean, we just had Art Basel in Miami. It was probably the largest sale of NFTs.
We just did the first NFT. I put it out for Congress, and it was.
How'd it go?
It was good. Nobody bought it, but it was. It was a ticket
Good
for
idea. Good idea.
for podcast.
I think the point I'm trying to make is we've got to educate people on what these technologies mean. And I feel like as a country, we have this generational opportunity to lean into this, right? And where China is, in my opinion, messing up, right? And giving us the opportunity of a lifetime by banning some of these technologies. We as a country need to wrap our arms around it. Whatever China's doing, we should be doing the opposite, frankly. But that's my personal opinion. You know, how do we first educate the generation that didn't create this? And how do we lean into the next generation that has grown up with it to create a generation of prosperity for America?
Look, when I look at you, you know what I look at? The laboratories of our country. You have the ability to try things and risk and be different and diversify in all the others. And I remember talking to former governor of Texas, and he was taking a lot of jobs, and I said, how are you doing this, right? He said, you know what I found? People wanted to leave, but when they came to look at us, they also looked at the quality of life. They also looked, did we have, a symphony? Did we have the arts? Did we have the others? And each element, technology transforms us. And what the mayor is talking about is almost a movement, right? It's a movement in itself, and it's generational from older to younger, and it is the future. And you can it doesn't matter how small or big you are, but if you're smaller, you even have a greater ability because you have a greater market share. And it's more just an openness is, how can I help? You don't have to know the technology. You just have to be open to it, because people who are investing in this technology, and this is the way I sat with the mayor at the very beginning. When you bring in a new industry, everybody tries for the big plants and the others. I would go small. I would hit singles and doubles, because what happens is you have a greater relationship with them. They're more willing to work with them. But when one of these new technology hits and they create wealth, then you create a whole angel system of local people who created wealth, who then reinvest in the city, and it continues to build throughout. I would start with an incubation of one or two of these in a small, but I would embrace ones and I would bring it into our schools and others, so you have young people starting it and just grow from there.
By the way, we started that way. We started with incubators, accelerators, a tech conference, and we're a bigger city. But I think what's interesting about this moment is that the world is more decentralized than ever. And so even though maybe capital allocation decisions are going to be made in larger cities, they're going to benefit everybody. I can't tell you the number of new companies that have started in Miami.
Do you know your biggest advocate is not yourself? So there is an individual, his name's Keith, and he was very successful. He was very successful in California. He's a
evangelist.
Yeah. He got so frustrated with how they treated him. He created thousands of jobs. He moves to Miami.
PayPal.
He meets him, but every day he's tweeting about how he's investing and bringing another company there. He's not doing that, but it's all because he loves what's happening there. And that's what you'll have. It won't be, you're a great marketer for your city, but you know what's better? It's someone that loves what's happening there. It's the ownership of telling, 10 more people. And he does it every day.
He does it every day. I love Keith. He's our number one evangelist without doubt. And Keith was one of the PayPal people that created PayPal, along with David Sachs and a little known guy, Elon Musk. You guys may have heard of him. Created a couple of companies after that.
But this is the other thing. We all think about who we're going to recruit in. You should all create a program to reward who's already there.
Absolutely.
Because Elon's a very good friend of mine, and Elon lived in California. He didn't want to leave California. He has SpaceX there. He has Tesla there. And when things became too difficult, it becomes a financial decision, and you have a responsibility to shareholders. When he said he was thinking of leaving, you know what the state rep did to him? Tweeted, F you, right? What I think, but he's probably at that point, you're not going to save him, right, when he left? But if you started doing things with people who are already there, you take your old Malcolm Baldwin Award or something else, people decide, I want to invest there because you care for who's already there.
Yeah, and that was another famous tweet, because he responded, message received. And so it was funny at the beginning when I did the How Can I Help, people sort of juxtaposed the two tweets, which is really a juxtaposition in attitude, right? And I think it's not partisan, it's not political, it's just a juxtaposition and attitude. I just want to make one last point because I think there's big and small cities here, many represented, and the point I wanted to make real quick was that as people are opening companies, even in Miami, many of them are built on a remote option, possibility or probability. What does that mean? That means that even though the company may be formed in one city, the jobs that company creates are being occupied in all of your cities, right? And I think that's a very, so when you're talking about creating a tech ecosystem in your own city, you can't just say like, well, Miami's a big city, there's this, there's that. No wonder why they're gonna, no. Everyone has the opportunity to do it in your own way, and they're high-paying jobs, so I would urge you to do that because it helps with other social issues in your city.
You know what I would do? Don't look at each other as competitive. Like you always think, oh, they're narrowing it down to these 3 cities, and you all have sister city programs with sister cities in other countries. I'd create sister cities with each other. Why wouldn't you be a sister city to Miami, where they may put a headquarters, but they're going to put 100 to 200 jobs in these others, and once one does it, what happens is they talk to each other because there's a lot of investors together and said, oh, we set it up this way, and then why don't you go to South Carolina, North Carolina? We put a little hub there, and here's the infrastructure already set up. You can build upon each other a win-win.
So I was sort of commenting this off stage with you. One of my good friends, who was from the opposite party, obviously, was the mayor of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And he used to tell me, Mr. Mayor, in America, there's 3 parties. And I said, really, Bill, what are they? He goes, well, there's Republicans, yeah. There's Democrats, yeah. He goes, and there's mayors. And so, to your point, sometimes you can meet a mayor and have a prolonged conversation with them and never know what party they're from, right? Because for them, they are sort of instructed with just solving problems. We're problem solvers.
Look, I love to recruit mayors.
How do we take that sort of problem-solving attitude and bring it to a place of 17-degree weather in the eastern part of the country?
Hey, I'm from California. I don't like this weather either. I don't like your humidity either, but are those bugs, So, look, I think from a perspective, you are office holders. I'm an office holder. I'm federal government. You're a local city. How do we build that together? And as a nation as a whole, we define each other too much, right? If we start the definition as Americans, how are we going to help you more? How are you going to be more helpful to us? I think from a perspective, look, if we're willing to hold the gavel in the philosophy of what I would look at, I think things should always happen more local and have greater control. But I wouldn't look to the federal government to think we're just money to deliver something. I look for investments from a federal government we're going to invest as their partners. I think everything, so if you have skin in the game and we have skin in the game, there's more apt to make that happen. And I think we should look at ways that we should try things differently. I mean, I give a lot of advice. People go to college, take the courses you're not good at, do that. We should start disrupting what we're doing, just how you recruit these businesses that are disruptors because they find an ability to do something more efficiently. We should find that throughout. How can we be disruptors to make sure our constituents get better service? How can we make our cities more efficient?
I really hope that in part of the time and the tenure that I have the privilege of serving my brothers and sister mayors across the country, we can become a laboratory of solutions and proposing solutions to the federal government, and that we can continue to have these kinds of conversations because you can see, what an engaging, wonderful person the leader is, just like we have engaging, wonderful people that we're going to hear from later today, our president, and we have engaging, wonderful people that we heard from yesterday, the speaker. Everyone has a great story. Everyone has a really true desire inside to serve and to give back. We may look at the world a little differently, but we have a lot more in common than people want to admit in this sort of context of the narrative, the national narrative, the sort of the media wants to put out there.
That's what it is. Look, in D.C., you'll read all about us, but we vote together more than we vote apart. There's a lot of great friendships internally. But what happens is technology also does other things. They let you say about somebody you don't even know, and you'll say things differently. We have television stations that don't give us news but give us opinion, and you can get whatever opinion you want philosophically. As elected leaders, we should push to the places of how do we find greater common ground in the others and not judgment. I love the idea of laboratories throughout, and I'll promise you this. I am not shy. I'll steal any good idea you have and put it to a different level. I'll give you credit, but I'll take a lot of credit myself too, because I found it and stole it. But to be competitive for the future, look, I think our two greatest threats in this world is the amount of debt that we have federally and China. They're innovating faster than we are. They're taking critical minerals and others. And I would never bet against this country when we're all focused in the same path. And I think a lot falls on your shoulders as well. I think you're natural leaders throughout. I think you have the ability to set tones. There's so many times something devastating happens in your city that you have no control over. But the way you handle it, the way you are the father, the mother to the city itself, you heal, you become healthier, but also what you do as America, we watch it and we're there with you. I mean, there's not a moment in time that we don't see one of those stories that we're not crying at the same time and we're not feeling. May it be a natural disaster or something else. And after that takes place, you find the greatness of the nation, that people come from all over just to provide food or shelter or others. I mean, when we start honoring those things and building those up better, I think people will look much more willing to do more of that.
And I'll just end on this note, while China may be taking raw materials for things like silicon microchips and things like that, that is at a worrying rate, they gave us a big opportunity with shutting down Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining.
Oh, yeah.
We should take advantage of it. I think that's something we can all work together. We're hoping to do a crypto compact in Miami on April. I invite you all to come and learn about crypto, obviously, first of all. But we want to have a guiding set of principles that we can send out to the federal government, because this is a unique moment in time. If we overregulate and stifle innovation, we crush it for a generation and we lose the competitive advantage that we have. Mr. Leader?
Even if you don't know about it, go to learn about it, because there'll be people in your community who know it well.
Leader, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, and good luck.
Show too, buddy.
Appreciate you.
Love you, brother. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
All right. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I thought that was refreshing and maybe different than what you would have expected. Our next speakers will be discussing the major funding sources that were included in the bipartisan infrastructure legislation. But before they join us, I want you to be aware of a new publication that we are releasing today that identifies resources within the new infrastructure legislation that can help cities advance their sustainability and climate-related goals. This publication, Cities Advancing Climate Action, Leveraging Federal Funds for Local Impact, was developed by the Alliance for Sustainable Future, a joint effort between the U.S. Conference of Mayors and the Center for Climate and Energy Solutions. The Alliance is chaired by Salt Lake City Mayor Aaron Mendenhall. Copies of the report can be found on your tables or on your chairs or on your table, as well as the conference's website. As you know, cities and local governments continue to be at the forefront of promoting climate mitigation and resiliency in their own communities. With the recent passage of the American Rescue Plan and the historic infrastructure bill, our cities now have access to new federal funds that can potentially be used to implement climate-related and sustainability initiatives. Included in this publication is a series of best practices, including, I'm very proud to say, the City of Miami's climate resiliency plans and our efforts to promote our new green economy. Other highlights include city efforts to conduct comprehensive flood mitigation, fleet electrification, promoting equity and green jobs, conducting energy efficiency retrofits, as well as grid preparation for electric vehicles. What may be of great interest to mayors is the apex at the end of this document, outlining the major programs in the infrastructure bill that can be used for climate and sustainability efforts. You can find detailed information on the level and type of funding, the program purpose, and who is eligible to apply. It's our hope that you can use this document now and in the future to serve as a guide in leveraging these new funds to implement new projects and programs in your communities. I'd like to thank the Alliance and AECOM for their contributions to the report. The Alliance plans on holding a series of follow-up webinars that will take a more in-depth look at these case studies. We hope you and your staff will be able to participate. Please stay tuned. Now, our next panel will be moderated by another good friend and former president of this conference, Mitch Landrieu, on the topic of accessing funds from the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, where the rubber meets the road. As we have said before, mayors have waited decades for the passage of a comprehensive infrastructure bill to prepare us for the 21st century. With bipartisan support in Congress and the leadership of the president, and the strong bipartisan support and advocacy from our Conference of Mayors, we now have the tools and funding to go to work for the American people to modernize our roads, bridges, public transit, broadband, water systems, and so much more. We could not be more pleased that the president has chosen one of our own, former New Orleans Mayor Mitch Landrieu, to guide the implementation of the new infrastructure law across the many federal agencies responsible for implementation. With his background as a lieutenant governor, state legislator, and most importantly, a mayor, I know that Mayor Landrieu will help ensure that critical federal resources do not get stuck at the state level. Right, Mayor Landrieu? Yeah. And that comprehensive grants reach cities of all sizes and help communities that have historically been underserved. Fellow mayors, please put your hands together for the former mayor of the great American city. I think that was Tom that put that in there. The great American city, New Orleans, former president of the United States Conference of Mayors and White House Infrastructure Coordinator for the President of the United States, Mr. Mitch Landrieu.
Oh, Lord have mercy. How y'all doing? Man, a man from Miami knows how to say New Orleans. That's amazing. Francis, thank you so much to my friend Mayor Suarez. It's great to see you. Congratulations on your new role as president of this event. It's great to see you guys. To Tom and to his staff, it's great to be with all of you. And to my dear friend, Nan Whaley, thank you for all you've done and all the work leading this organization. And what a record you guys have helped put together this year. ARP funding and, of course, now the infrastructure bill. And because of it, our cities are on a brighter path because of your leadership. And I want to thank everybody here. But I want you to think with me about where we were just 1 year ago. 2 million people were vaccinated 1 year ago. Now over 200 million people have shots of the life-saving vaccine in their arms. The American Rescue Plan has in fact rescued city budgets, keeping the lifeblood of communities running. The economy in this country is now red hot, adding 6.4 million jobs, the largest number of jobs ever by a president in the first year of the administration. And for the first time in 20 years, the U.S. economy has grown faster than China's. And it's creating a race to the top for workers, not a race to the bottom. We finally also have a government that looks like America from cabinet to judges because this president understands that diversity is our greatest strength. And we'll soon have shovels turning dirt on the largest infrastructure projects in a generation. Now, maybe some of you are old enough to remember Eisenhower, but most of us are not. But that's the last time something like that happened. And when President Biden came into office just 1 year ago, he promised to use the power of the presidency to help everyday Americans, to bring people together, to help rebuild our economy, to help rebuild our country. And he and the vice president are doing just that. For decades, all of us in this room, and we all remember the conversations, talked about what? Infrastructure Week. It never came. We waited. We talked. It never came. We continued to wait and we continued to talk, and it never came. Well, let me tell you, working with all of you, President Biden worked across the aisle, and he finally got it done. Promises made, promises kept. So let me just tell you, go ahead, every week's going to be Infrastructure Week. And only this time, we're going to actually be building things, and we're going to be doing it with you. But listen, it's going to be a little bit hard. I want to explain to you why. You already know this because you're mayors. I'm going to talk about my mama. I told her I was going to do this, by the way. When I was mayor, she would call me and say, son, my streets are wrecked. You're the mayor. Can't you do something about it? To which I said, no, Mama, because it's your street and you're my mama, so no, I can't fix your street because it's going to be a problem. But I'll put it in line with everybody else, you understand. And she would complain and complain about her street not being done. Well, her street is now under construction. Thank you, Mayor Cantrell. And now my mother's calling me. She's aggravated because it's taken her too long to get to the doctor. To which I say, well, wait a minute, Mom, you complained when it wasn't getting done, and now you're complaining when it is getting done. You can't have it both ways. She said, listen, I'm your mother. I can have it however I want. So good luck. You understand what it is that we're going to be doing. In all seriousness, our infrastructure team has hit the ground running, and we're going to rebuild a better America. Given the kind of work we do as mayors, that's right. You will all be familiar with what we've been up to here. We're building a team. We're setting up tracking for accountability. We're talking about how to cut red tape on permitting just to make sure that we get it done. And I am so lucky to be working with a great task force made up of cabinet secretaries, many of them mayors. You know, Mayor Pete, Mayor Marty. By the way, the Secretary of Agriculture was the mayor before he got demoted to be a governor. Don't tell the governors that I said that, please. We also have some great governors on our team. Governor Raimondo, they know what's going on. I understand that we have flooded the field here with administration folks, and it's because the president understands that mayors are the ones that get things done. And our team truly understands that this is where the rubber meets the roads. We know how these programs have to look when they get to the ground. We know that there isn't a Republican or a Democratic way to fill a pothole. This is a one-team, one-fight mission for the United States of America. This bipartisan infrastructure holds a lot of promise for our communities. Better roads, more modern airports, fixing 15,000 of the 45,000 off-system bridges that are in poor conditions. Just this morning, I met with Mayor Randall Woodford from Birmingham, Alabama, who told me that just this morning, less than 2 hours ago, they had to close the Richard Arrington Bridge, by the way, another great mayor that ran that city, that runs right through the heart of its town because it was so dangerous. That city can't function as well without that bridge, so he understands and you understand the importance of this program. We're also rebuilding the ports, the roads, and rail that make up the supply chain, which get us what we need, from the ships to the shelves, to lower costs for Americans, and so that we can sell what it is that we make. We're going to expand high-speed internet to every home in America, all households in urban and in rural communities. Amen to that. And that's because 30 million Americans still don't have reliable internet, which means they lack opportunity and the country lacks growth. And we're going to do this so that kids can learn, so that seniors can access telemedicine, and so that farmers can use precision agriculture. This bill contains $1 billion, hear me now, to reconnect communities that have been separated and divided, where they were divided by highways and other infrastructure because the president ran to unite this country. We're going to be upgrading repairs to our electrical power grids, installing electrical vehicle chargers, 500,000 of them across America. And we're going to upgrade and replace water pipes that are contaminated with lead. Cities like Newark and Mayor Ross Baraka have already been out there paving the way on this. The USCM has been a leader, making clean water, which every American has a right to, a core focus of this investment strategy. So thank you for your leadership. These are all investments our country has never made before, but would definitely make them now, and progress is on the way. Now, earlier this week, as if we hadn't announced enough, we announced a $4.7 billion program to cap orphaned wells that are spewing pollutants, polluting our land and water, to massive investments in waterways, ports, and resilience from the U.S. Corps of Engineers, a $14 billion announcement, over 500 projects across 52 states and territories that are going to protect communities from flooding, improve navigation for commerce, and help manufacturers get goods to the market. That's a lot of stuff in a short period of time, and we have a lot of work to do to make it happen. But there's more. There's also includes a $1 billion allocation to protect and restore the Florida Everglades, which is the largest investment in the Everglades in U.S. history. Now, Mayor, you from Florida, you ought to give it up for that one. Now listen, We can only deliver on the promise of this bill if we do this in partnership with all of you. After all, most of the building will actually get done by the states, and guess who? Y'all can raise your hand. Everybody in this room. That's why we asked the states to appoint an infrastructure coordinator, which we think is going to help foster cross-agency collaboration and make it easier for them to get problems solved very quickly. And states like Delaware and New Mexico have already appointed coordinators, one of them an ex-mayor, I might say, and states like Arkansas and Michigan have helped set up interagency task forces and offices similar to our federal partners. But to be set up for success, we have to think across agency. And by the way, it's really important that you and local governments do the same, and so I'm asking you to do it. Some of you are already on it, and I thank you for that. For instance, Mayor Ron Nirenberg in San Antonio, he was one of the first in the country to call me. He was one of the first to set up an interagency task force and tap an infrastructure coordinator with a goal to maximize our opportunities for partnerships, equity, and to secure federal funding for cross-cutting San Antonio infrastructure projects. I commend it to you for reflection. And I can tell you from my interactions already, cities like San Antonio that are getting organized the right way are set up for success, and you can do the same thing. You see, America's cities are already leading the way on infrastructure, just like I know and the president knows that you would do. Now, my team is here to be problem solvers, to break down silos. We want to help you take advantage of this great opportunity to build a better, stronger America. Now, I know that for some of you in this room, the fact that the money is gone to the states gives you headaches, might cause you to lose your hair a little bit. You can look at mine. I went through rebuilding Katrina. I understand what that's like. And it may not easily trickle down to your community. You've got to do your work on that level to make that happen and to make your case. But because I've been a mayor and because I understand, we're going to do a lot of things to help. So let me tell you what we're thinking about. We have compiled for you, a first ever, I think, fact sheet where we list out every competitive program that you will be able to participate in that will be coming directly to cities. It's available at the infrastructure desk that is right outside the hallway. The ink is not dry on it yet. It's right out there. And I want you all to look at it. It's a resource that many of you have asked about. In the coming weeks, we're going to release a more detailed guidebook for state and local governments. We're going to include everything that you would want to know about a program at this point. And by the way, there are over 100 programs that are part of this $1.2 trillion bill that is going to help build a better America. We'll say whether the funding is going to go to cities or local governments. We'll provide date ranges when applications will be coming to help you plan better. And we're going to have some suggestions about what you can be doing now. You don't have to wait to help prepare for these competitive funding streams that are coming down. So let me just give you a couple. So get your pen out. Y'all got a pen? Write these down. Or we'll text them to you. Make sure the road and bridge projects are part of your regional planning organization's transportation improvement plan. Regionalization, partnership. Map and inventory your lead pipes. You don't have to wait. Work with your state to map your broadband gaps and your needs. Map out where you'd like to and need to put electrical vehicle chargers. Start community engagement now on the front end so we can get this right, because we believe in community engagement. And please, can I just get on my knees and ask you, please include your congressmen and your senators that can help advocate for your priorities. Even those that voted no still want the dough. You understand what I'm saying? Can you hear me? Can you feel me? All right. You understand what I just said, right? Okay. Plus, they voted for the bill, and they absolutely should be patted on the back for doing a great thing. Most of this can be done today with American Rescue Plan that's funding that's available to you right now. Now, I know that you have a lot of demands on the American Rescue Plan funds, but this is such a once-in-a-generation opportunity that we need to be smart to get this right. I also recognize that for many communities, even having a staff person to write grants is a significant expense. That's why my team is laser-focused on helping develop a technical assistance pipeline to help assist all of you in this effort on access, on application, and on capacity to execute, which many small towns, communities do not have. The president sees you. This bill also provides government funding to help build organizational capacity. And following the release of the guidebook, we will also roll out deep dive whiteboard sessions where we look more deeply at buckets of funding coming on high-speed internet, on grid upgrades, on EV chargers, and more. Look, we're all trying to get the money out of the door quickly, but it's also important here for me to level set and help you understand, unlike the American Rescue Plan, this is a long-term investment. All of you are in politics to know it's easy to tear something down. It just takes a minute. It takes a long time. Good planning, smart people to build something right that will last for the ages. Amen? And that's what we're trying to do for the country. So over the next 5 to 7 years, this $1.2 trillion is going to make a huge difference, and funding like that may not come around for decades to come. So we want to get it right. We want to go fast, but we want to get it right. As the good Lord said when you were praying, Lord, help me be patient, but hurry the hell up. That's a good prayer, by the way. Y'all ought to try it. Doesn't always work, but I'm just telling you. That's why I want to encourage each of you to think about the long-term economic potential for your communities in the broader sense. You know that I'm going to be calling on each of you to help us to communicate local impacts of the bipartisan infrastructure law and to share stories about the ways that it will directly benefit real people's lives. Stories like in New Hampshire that would have to go an extra 10 miles out of the way if the bridge closes, that creates a life or death situation because the EMS is on one side and the hospital is on the other. Stories like the one Secretary Gina Raimondo told me about a school that had to bus paper worksheet home to kids during the pandemic because that community didn't have access to high-speed internet. Or stories like the woman who lost her job because a community cut back bus service. It was her only way to get around town. This is why we're doing this. This is really what it's all about. Real people, real problems in real places. The president wants you to know that he sees them. He wants us to meet them where they are. He wants them to lift them up, and he wants us to improve the lives of everyday Americans. Finally, let me say that President Biden's direction to me was to help build a better America. The operative word here is better. Anybody can do it the old way. That's not what we're doing. So let me tell you for a minute what better looks like. Better looks like creating good-paying union jobs, a top priority for the president, and making sure that great wages are paid to great people so that they can earn a living and feed their families. I like to say you can't take the boy out of Scranton, but you can't take Scranton out of the boy. The better is making it possible for companies to manufacture more products here at home, American-made products, to rebuild our supply chains so Americans can get what they need more efficiently and to lower the cost for our citizens. Better looks like using this investment in our infrastructure and our people to build more resilience to combat climate change, which, as you know, threatens us all. Better looks like building an America in a way that moves us all forward with racial equity, not leaving anybody behind at the center of everything that we do, because the president knows diversity is this country's greatest strength. No community gets left behind. No person gets left behind. Because, as the president believes, and I believe you believe it too, that we are all better together. All better together. This is what building a better America looks like. When we've invested in ourselves, not only in our roads and our highways and on our bridges, but in our peoples and our families, we as a country have won. With all of you, we will show the world what working together looks like. With all of you, we're going to show the world what building a better America looks like. And as always, you, the mayors, are leading the way. Thank you very much. Oh, Lord have mercy. All right, listen. My mama must have called y'all and told y'all that I was having a bad day. Thank y'all. I'm sorry, y'all have to listen to me a little bit more because y'all asked me questions, so I want to be able to answer them for you. Anyway, look, we're going to do a quick panel because we have really smart people that understand this in a really deep way. And I know a lot of folks are interested in the mechanics of what we do. So we're going to do a quick panel with some of the experts that are working on these departments. It's a $1.2 trillion bill. It's a 100 program. It involves 14 departments. My job is to herd cats, bring them around the table, get everybody focused on the one team, one mission, and make sure they're working with each other so you don't have to talk to 1,000 people. You understand? Or I should say just capiche? You get it? All right. So we're going to do a panel here, and we're going to do a deeper dive. So joining me today is Mr. Alan Davidson, who is newly confirmed, I mean like last week, he's still in shock, confirmed Assistant Secretary of Commerce and Director of the National Telecommunications and Information Administration, also known as NTIA. Remember that acronym. I'm living in acronym hell up here in Washington. That's all y'all talk about is in letters. Who are going to oversee much of the broadband work for the Secretary Raimondo. $65 billion program, laying high-speed internet. This is the guy. Prior to his role, he served at Mozilla Foundation, and he previously served in the Department of Commerce as its first director of digital economy during the Obama administration. Help me welcome Mr. Alan Davidson. Love this guy up. Come on, Alan. You can come out. Look, you don't want to come out. Come on, Alan. Come on. How you doing? It's nice to see you. Christopher Coase is the Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary for Transportation. You want to love him, too. Christopher previously served as Vice President for Land Use and Development at Smart Growth America, a senior fellow at Brookings Institute, professor. You're a professor, huh? Wow. At GW University, a Deputy Director and Senior Advisor for Transportation, roads, bridges, airports, that kind of stuff. Y'all need some of that? All right. And finally, Radhika Fox is a Principal Deputy Assistant Administrator at EPA, Air, Water. Y'all like clean air and clean water? Okay, this is the boss. She previously served as CEO of the U.S. Water Alliance and has a background in local governments where she directed policy and government affairs for San Francisco Public Utilities Commission. She also previously served as the Federal Policy Director at PolicyLink. So thank you guys all for joining me.
Thank you for having us.
Give them a round of applause. Y'all gonna want to know these people. Just to kind of get your head right about this, Pete Buttigieg, transportation, right? Okay. Administrative Fox, EPA, right? Okay. And where are you? You're at Commerce, right?
Secretary Raimondo.
Okay. But look, don't let that fool you. There's 6 different agencies that mess around with broadband, but Commerce has most of it, so that's why he's here. So you understand, you got the secretaries, then you have the folks that are making things happen, and then you have the governors and the infrastructure coordinators, then you have you guys, and we're going to do horizontal and vertical integration so stuff gets down to the ground and communities get better. That's like the whole bill in like 5 seconds. All right? So just a couple of questions on the issues that these guys are really smart about. And Radhika, I'm going to start with you. There's a great need in this country, as you know, to make sure that everybody's got access to clean water. And lead pipes has been a real significant problem because any trace of lead is damaging, to our kids and our families. So can you talk to us a little bit about lead pipe and the lead pipe action plan that the Vice President announced on behalf of the President just a couple of weeks ago?
Absolutely, but I just got to first say thank you, Mitch, for serving in this role. And
You're welcome.
I mean, did the President get it right or what, right? Right, because the President knows that it's mayors that make stuff happen for communities, so who better to really herd the cats, as you said, Mitch, than you? And so, and it's for me always wonderful to be with a group of mayors because I actually started my water career working for Mayor Ed Lee in San Francisco, and he was a great infrastructure mayor, and I learned so much from him, so it's just really such an honor to now serve in this role. So the lead paint and pipe action plan. So President Biden is the first president to ever say there is no safe level of lead exposure when it comes to our water systems. And he has called for 100% removal of lead pipes in communities all across the country. And so the lead paint and pipe action plan is really, he called on all of the federal agencies to say, what can you do to make progress on removing lead pipes from our drinking water systems, to remediating lead paint in communities around the country? And the federal agencies really answered that call. So the plan calls for 10 federal agencies to do their part, 15 bold actions to achieve that goal. And at the EPA, Administrator Regan and I are really proud to do our part. A couple of things we're really focused on is strengthening the lead and copper rule and making it clear and certain for local communities across the country, leveraging the $15 billion in the infrastructure package for removing lead pipes and harmonizing it with other grant programs that we have. And then finally, we know that not only removing lead pipes is expensive, and that's why we need these resources, but it's really complicated. And so we are going to be putting out a whole range of resources to support mayors like you, state governments, in having the best information to get those pipes out once and for all.
Thank you very much. That was the easy question. Here's the hard one. This is the one they want to know. How can they get the money? So I should follow my script, but that's really the point of the question. Obviously, states control revolving funds. So you guys understand federal pipelines, right? They're these formulas that are set up. The formulas mostly go through the states. This is one of those, and they go into something called state revolving funds. And so really, what are you guys thinking about, and how you make sure the money actually gets down into the smaller communities and counties and tribal lands? What's the process for doing that? What's that really look like? Do you guys have a plan? And what is that plan so that they can organize themselves around it?
Absolutely. So one thing that's incredible about the 43 of the 50 billion for water infrastructure investments are going through the state revolving loan funds. And what is different about this SRF money than the annual allocation that we get is that 49% of it has to go out as grants, has to go out as forgivable loans, which is so key, Mitch, to disadvantaged communities, lower income communities, because they can't often access that loan instrument. So one, we really are going to focus on leveraging that 49% and really working with states to get that to communities who need it the most. The second is we're going to partner with states in a way that we haven't before. Administrator Regan, a couple weeks after the bill was signed by the president, sent a letter to all of the governors calling for partnership and calling for prioritization in underserved communities. I'm doing calls with every single environmental secretary around the country to say, how can we work together? And then one thing we're really excited about is we're going to be investing just in 2022 alone $50 million in technical assistance. So we want to work with local communities. We want to help you. What is that water challenge? What's the project that best meets that need that can get SRF money? We want to invest in technical assistance that will help your folks write those applications and get on the list. So that's what we're going to be doing.
Well, I appreciate that. I want to take a minute here to repeat something that I said that I'm sure you didn't listen to. Look, I'm from a family of 9. I'm the 5th. I'm used to sitting at the table talking and nobody listening. So don't worry about it. Y'all can eat up. I want to impress this on you, and I want you to be impressed by it, and then I want you to do something about it. I have already called all 50 governors in America. I've personally spoken to 40 of them. I've talked to 3 of their chiefs of staffs. The other 7, we're going to get in touch soon, one way or the other, even if I got to go over there and see them. And so the idea is to create a vertical and horizontal system so that up here, we're going to break down the stovepipes between and amongst all these different departments, all right? Because Alan's going to tell you this in a little while about broadband. His piece involves 5 or 6 different agencies, so you don't have to go talk to 6 or 7 people. And then all of a sudden, all the way down as well. Now, this requires cooperation between you and your governors. Now, I know some of y'all maybe don't like each other, and maybe some of y'all do. But everybody likes infrastructure. And so if we keep this interest-based and focused, you've heard me say there's no Republican or Democratic way to fill a pothole, although people are going to try to make it that way. All right? So we don't need to let that happen. But we have to be organized horizontally and vertically. And so it's going to be very helpful to your governors in their decision-making process for you to be organized on the local level, too. So each of the mayors, I'm hoping, is going to have a table that looks like your emergency operations table. If a catastrophic event happens, you know what? You go to the head of the table. You got your fire chief, you got your police chief, you got your water person. You understand, right? Get another table and call it the infrastructure table. All right? And understand that in this bill, half of this bill is transportation. That's in his shop. But the other half is everywhere else. You know? And so you have to have all of those people at the table for 2 reasons. One is because not all the money is in transportation. And 2, in order for transportation to do their job, and in order for commerce to do their job, and in order for water to do their job, they all got to be talking the same language at the same time, because you guys know the next thing that people in Washington forget, that you're actually building a community. And all that stuff's got to hit. It don't make any sense to have a grocery store if there's not a house, or a house without a school, or a school without a transit system, or a transit system without a doctor. That's not a community. That's an island. Right? You understand? So y'all understand this, and they understand this. So we're trying to put everybody together so we understand each other. Yep. That's kind of what we're trying to do from an execution point of view. And your governors, right, will get this, but they won't get it necessarily by themselves, so you have to help them. And the better organized you are on this level, and then the governor's here, and then us here, if we push that together and we're one seamless thing, we're an army that nobody can beat. You see what I'm saying? So what I wanted you to, that was an easy question. The hard one is this. If the money's gone through those state revolving funds, and you're doing other kinds of loans, and they have communities that are poor, they don't have a good tax base, they can't pay this back, how are they going to be able to get the resources, keep them, and not have to pay everything back the way we were talking about? Is that the grant piece that you were discussing?
That is, and that is huge, and it's never been done before. The fact that almost half of this money must go out. States must put it out as grants. And when we develop our guidance at the EPA, we're going to really be very clear that we got to prioritize those grant monies to the disadvantaged communities. And that's why the technical assistance comes in. And then, Mitch, what I will say is, in addition to the SRF money, we have other money in the water piece that folks should know about. There's about $1.7 billion for the geographic programs. We just earlier this week put out a request for proposals for $50 million in the Puget Sound. So there'll be other things like that coming soon too.
Yeah, and for all you folks that are just kind of, some urban and some rural, all of these issues are important to everybody, but everybody in the country wants clean water.
Yep.
I'm just telling you straight up. I mean, this thing has popped so hot since they've announced this. Every community in America wants clean water. Sewer and water systems, sewage, all of this stuff is critically important. It's a shame that we've gotten so far behind. The President Biden understands that, wants to do something about it. He appointed a great team to do it. So Radhika, thank you very muure off the hot seat right now for a little while, so you can relax. Alan, poor Alan, just came on board a couple of days ago, and you just got confirmed, right?
Confirmed last week.
Wow.
This is day 4.
How about that, huh? But he's a smart guy and he knows a lot of stuff. And essentially, he is going to be at the NTIA, which, by the way, just heads up, is in the Department of Commerce. And remember, I told you, well, that's good, but there are a whole bunch of different agencies that play in this space too. So, Alan, I want just talk a little bit. It's absolutely clear, as you know, the President of the United States, I want to unite America. Bridges unite people, right? Guess what? So does high-speed internet. That's when people can talk. Can you imagine a little girl sitting on the porch in the holler of Appalachia, you know, in Kentucky, and not having access to high-speed internet, but she's brilliant? If we gave her what I need, maybe she would save our life one day. Maybe she would be the president. Maybe she would be the next poet laureate. Maybe she would be the head of, you know, the ballet. Maybe she would manufacture the next superconductor chip, but she ain't going nowhere without high-speed internet. She's not learning, and so who's losing, us or her? She is. Now, compare her to another little kid that may be sitting in the middle of New York that has access, and they're the same kid, essentially. You know, one kid's got something and the other kid doesn't. And the country's still losing because now they don't ever get to know each other. So just as simple like that. So connecting people, and it's his job to make sure everybody in America, on behalf of the president, has access to this. So talk a little bit to us about the approach that you guys are thinking about inside of Commerce and then across the agencies, Department of Agriculture, Department of Interior, maybe even transportation, because when you lay down roads and you open up things, you might want to put lots of stuff in the ground rather than just one thing so you don't have to open it up again. I mean, I can understand that. I went to St. Matthias, right? Sometimes we open up roads and we don't fix anything, and then we got to go back and open it up again, and it costs us twice as much money. So Alan, talk to us a little bit about how you want to connect people in America.
The president has given us a pretty simple and incredibly ambitious goal, which is to connect everyone in America with high-speed, affordable internet service. It's simple. It's once in a generation, maybe once in a lifetime opportunity to bridge the digital divide in a way that we haven't had a chance to before. And it's a program that if we do it right, it's gonna upgrade our infrastructure, it's gonna create jobs, it's gonna address some of the long-standing inequities in our society. It's going to improve our competitiveness, right? So this is essential. And I don't have, Mayor Landry just told us, you know, some of these stories. You are living them too. The pandemic has made it clear we need broadband. People need it to be able to thrive in our modern economy. And I'm a techie. I started work in this space 25 years ago as a computer scientist. If you had told me then what we would be doing, what we would be relying on today, I would not have believed it. Video conferencing, you know, access to our economy. All of this now relies on broadband. We've all heard the stories about people who are unserved and underserved, the school kids going to the library, sitting in a parking lot in order to be able to get access to education. But it's more than that. We know it's if you want to find a job online, today, how do you do it without being online? Access to telehealth, access to justice. It all goes through the internet now. So there are millions of households we know that are unserved, that are underserved, and we have a plan to connect them all. The good news is that the bipartisan infrastructure bill, as well as other laws that have passed recently, there are now these pools of money. And I say once in a generation, for people who've been working in this space, it's an incredible chance to try to connect everyone. There are a couple of different streams of money you're going to hear about. The biggest is one that we're administering, over $42 billion in state grants to connect the unserved and the underserved first. There are other pots of money as well. The law, we're going to be focused first. It lays out a path. It lays out a path that starts with making sure that we're getting to the unserved first. But it also has components that are going to address affordability and adoption, which are critical components. It's more than just access. We're going to require a low-cost option. So anybody who gets this federal money is going to make sure that there's affordability built in. We also have a couple of other grant programs that we're administering, which include a $2 billion digital equity fund, which is going to be open directly to communities to be part of. We also have a $1 billion middle mile fund for those connections in between, not necessarily to the home, but that kind of people can build on. Those are serious money. We were talking backstage. If we had just been talking about those $2 or $3 billion, $4, $5, $6 billion programs in the Obama administration, we would have been pretty psyched. We've also got these other pools of money too, and they're at the Department of Agriculture. We're all at the FCC. We're all going to be coordinated, so it's one-stop shopping for you all.
Well, I appreciate that. I want to just kind of, before I turn it over to Chris, I'll talk a little bit about how local governments can access the work that's coming out of, the broadband team. Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm going to call it high-speed internet because some people they don't broadband. The guy that works for me went home for Thanksgiving and he said, Dad, he said, son, what are you doing? He goes, I'm working for this guy, Mitch Landry. He's kind of crazy. And he says, well, what are you doing? He said, well, the president wants to help rebuild the country. And he goes, yeah, but like, what do you do? What do you do? What do you do? And he says, well, Dad, we're laying broadband. And the daddy said, I don't know what that is. And he said, it's high-speed internet. And he said, well, why don't y'all just say that? I mean, I'm just saying that, so I call it high-speed internet because I know broadband
there you
is
go.
important. But what is that? I'm sorry, I'm getting in the way of my own story. What are some of the things that they can do to get prepared on the local level for what you have coming their way?
News you can use. First of all, I would just start by saying, have a plan. I wouldn't have said that necessarily to everybody 5 years ago, but have a high-speed internet plan, right? Because the truth is, we are in this moment where there are so many pots of money, there's so many funding streams. You want to take advantage of them. So I would say, I know some communities have them, some don't. Start thinking about having a plan. Right. Second thing, a lot of this money is going to go through the states for sure, and so engage with your state broadband offices. Once you've got an idea of what your need is, engage with them. And we know that communities, you folks are on the front lines of this and know where the need is. Right. The third thing I'd say is pay attention to the maps. One thing that's going to come out, not to get too technical, but all of this is driven by where is the need, where are the unserved, where are the underserved. We're going to be mapping that out. The FCC is going to be doing that. And there's a chance to cure those maps, to challenge it. Like I say, you folks are on the front lines of knowing where the need is. So that's going to be something else to pay attention to. And the last thing I'd say is it's not just about that big state grant pot. That's the biggest pot, but there are lots of other pots of money. That's why I say have a plan, be ready to engage. Right. Our front door, broadbandusa.gov. Broadbandusa.gov. Come there. We've got information about where to find grants. We've got people who will help you. We're going to be providing technical assistance, models. We want to be one-stop shop, easy for you to get access to all this money.
All right, now he's kind of singing my song, so let me give you a headache. broadband, two things. They're going to lay stuff in the ground so that people can get connected to it, so they got to open the ground, right? And for people that already have that but don't have any money, there's going to be money to help them pay for what they already have but they can't afford. Okay, that's the whole program. You understand what I just said? All right, so that's the easy part. Here's the hard part. It's got to go in the ground somewhere, and you got to figure out where that somewhere is. And then you got to figure out where the people are who need it. So that's what the mapping piece is. They're going to be doing this on the federal level, state level, local level, but you got to get synced up with that. And guess what? You don't necessarily control this. If you have something like the Public Service Commission that we have in Louisiana that oversees that, you got to get with them so that you can organize how you're going to do it together, number one. Number two, this is not just going in your area, it's going next door. So like if you're running a road, you don't stop the road at the end of your county line, right? So you got to be talking to your partners. You understand? Now, when you open up the road, seriously, think about this. Remember I told you we're fixing the electric grid? Somebody might want to lay that stuff in that hole. If you're doing sewer and water stuff, they might want to lay stuff in that hole too. Now you got a headache because you got to bring all those agencies together. That's why I'm telling you, you can do whatever you want because y'all are the mayors and y'all are the bosses. But it would be wiser and smarter to be able to coordinate all this stuff so that when you ask, you get a yes rather than a no. And you want everybody to say yes, right? So go do that thing. That's the whole point of the coordination. So there's a thing that we're trying to do, and there's a way to get organized that makes it easy to get done. And when you finish, it's actually better, like I said before, rather than what we had. Delivery system, horizontal and vertical integration. All right. I'm going to go to the man that's holding half the money. So this divided, this $1.2 trillion, half of it's going to all these different agencies, and half of it's going to the Department of Transportation. Mayor Pete, who's been here, who you guys know well, is going to oversee the money that's going to highways, airports, ports, et cetera. That's all gone through the Department of Transportation, which is a big, beautiful agency that's been working really, really hard. And Christopher is kind of point today on these things. So Christopher, as I said, DOT is about half of this bill. Most of the competitive grants, here, y'all could get some of that. That's what I mean. Can you tell us big picture how DOT is thinking about both climate and equity as key benchmarks in designing and educating? Y'all heard what I said? You want a yes? President said this is what better looks like, and we're now talking about how you design your program so you get a yes. Can you tell us how y'all set up to help make that happen and give them some thoughts about how to design their programs?
Absolutely, Mayor. First and foremost, literally a year plus 1 day ago, the President Biden and Vice President Harris made climate and racial equity a #1 priority for this administration. As such, this department, U.S. Department of Transportation, under the great leadership of, many of you call Mayor Pete, we call him Secretary Buttigieg, has instructed his staff to literally over the last year really infuse that spirit, that call of action in our day-to-day work. And Mayor, you asked how we are designing, how we're thinking about this in terms of particularly our discretionary grant, and as well as our formal programs. There are a couple things I'll note. Mayors, you understand the value of transformative infrastructure projects to lead to transformative climate goals and equity goals. I'm preaching to the choir here. Mm-hmm. One of the things that we know is that right now in our department, safety is our #1 North Star. However, we know when we make our roadways, particularly in our neighborhoods, safer for people to walk, bike, roll, particularly after this last year where we have seen the highest number of fatalities and injuries on those roadways, when we address that, guess what? We also reduce greenhouse emissions. We also address the disparities that we're seeing with those fatalities, particularly in rural and disadvantaged communities. But more importantly, as mayors have seen as part of COVID, when you make your cities and neighborhoods more walkable and safer, not just for those to walk, bike, and roll, but also to drive, your businesses do well. More people have money in their pockets because they don't have to drive everywhere, and they can spend money on your local retail. That's how we are incorporating equity and climate into our discussion. So when you are applying to our grants, we're looking to you to bring that intersectionality that you are doing every day with your business community, with your partnerships with your local community groups, CDFIs and the like, as well as bringing in other stakeholders. We are looking for those projects. And I'll say, one of the things that you will be excited about, this bipartisan infrastructure law now includes $6 billion specifically to address roadway fatalities. If you're bringing those type of projects to us, we are more than likely going to fund those projects. So that's one example of how we are trying to incorporate climate equity into our work. Another place I will also point to is the fact that when we look at our EV charging dollars, you just heard recently we're coming out with the guidance on our electric vehicle formula program, as well as our community discretionary grant program. When you are thinking about, of course, EV chargers themselves can reduce greenhouse gases, but think about it in this way. When you think about equity, where are we putting those chargers? Are we making sure that these chargers are being placed not in just in terms of communities who have EVs, but where we want to have those chargers to go in the future, in disadvantaged communities, in rural places? We're making sure that our guidance really emphasizes that these dollars can't just go to those who have, but also those who want to be a part of this new revolution of what America can be when it's better. Lastly, and I will just end here in terms of climate and equity, this is not a conversation just for the urban cities. This is for rural communities as well. And one of the things that we are excited about, particularly through our Justice 40 work, that we are going to be providing additional resources in terms of technical assistance, webinars, and the like, so that disadvantaged communities, rural communities who are thinking about how to retransform our rural main streets, how can we change our disadvantaged community, walkable urban neighborhoods and town centers, we are going to be on the front lines with you, mayors, so you can get your applications right, that you, when you apply, we can actually not only get you the money, but also the most challenging aspect is making sure that you can put those dollars out effectively. And so one of these we will be working with you is on the grant management side. And so those are just some examples of some of how we are trying to incorporate the equity and climate space through some of the work that we're doing today.
Pretty good, huh?
Yeah.
Thank you for Christopher. But, yeah, it was good. And, I should say and, not but. He rolled through something really quickly that I want you to talk about a little bit more. Justice 40. Would you talk to them? Y'all have heard this term before, Justice 40, but I want Christopher to take you through this because it was a really specific mission of the president.
Well, thank you for that, Mayor. One of the things that as part of the president's commitment to tackling this climate crisis is recognizing that when we are with this significant investment in America, we need to make sure we're not leaving anyone behind. That this is a moment that if we're going to build back better, we need to make sure we're building back everyone. And one of the key aspects of Justice 40 is recognizing that the federal government has a responsibility to make sure that we are targeting these clean transportation, clean energy resources to combat climate crisis to disadvantaged communities. And what does that mean for a Department of Transportation? Number one, we need to know what is causing the disadvantaged community. So we've been going through a level of mapping exercise, whether it's what is the transportation burden. One of the things we've learned is that there are many communities that individuals, literally think about this, individuals are spending more than 80% of their household budget on housing and transportation. You know this. If we can figure out ways how we can redesign some of our programs, whether it's our transit dollars, to those targeted communities, if we can bring those transportation dollar costs, we know what the impact. That means people have more money for their food, more money for their educational opportunities, and also support local businesses. So that's an example of how we're taking Justice 40 every day based on the goal that the president laid out and trying to implement some of it. And in addition to that, it's requiring us to work across the agencies. So it's not just a DOT effort. It's us working with EPA. It's us working with the Department of Commerce and asking, how can we collectively make sure the resources and benefits are going to those disadvantaged communities across the board and providing the support. It's an exciting time, but guess what? We can't do it alone. It's going to require a federal and local, and particularly the mayors, to come together in close collaboration and unity with the communities who those represent to get this done. And we are excited to move that forward.
I love that. I picked up a new phrase, unity with the communities. I love that. But listen, just hear me here. Disadvantaged means white and black, and it means urban and rural.
Absolutely.
It means everybody, all in. And guess what? There's a lot more that connects us than doesn't. Remember, I told you it's easy to tear something down. It's hard to build it up. And people have been trying to keep us apart for a long time. There's a lot of stuff in here for everybody in America, and we're better together. That's the president's mission, and it's his vision. And by the way, this Justice 40 piece, it cuts across every agency. All right, so mayors, hear this. You know this. How something is designed is an indication of how it comes out. If you don't design it right, it ain't gonna come out right. Okay, so you have a lot of power here. So when somebody brings you something, lots of people bring you stuff every day, a staff member, an architect, an engineer, and they bring you something that looks a certain way. And you say, well, have you thought about this? No. Have you thought about that? No. It's like making a pot of gumbo. If you don't put the right stuff in it, it don't taste good. Y'all can understand that, right? Okay, a little bit too much pepper, not enough salt, you forgot the hot sauce, whatever. It comes out bad. if it's not designed right. And the president says, if you want to build back better, design it right. So I want you to think about people who have been left out. I want you to think about Made in America. I want you to think about, does it produce good jobs? I want you to think about whether it's strong and resilient. So in the Three Little Pigs, when the big bad wolf comes along, they can't blow the house down. You understand? That's climate change, just like in a little bit of fable right there. Right? You understand that? You understand the Three Little Pigs, right? All right. You want to be the house, you want to be the pig in the house of bricks. Okay? That's what resilience and sustainability is about. So think about that. All right, back to the last question of the day. This is the one you care about the most. Y'all remember what Tiger grants were? Love those things. I love them so much they changed the name of it, so now I don't know what it is. I don't know why they did that, but they did. They're now called RAISE, R-A-I-S-E. It must be an acronym for something that I don't understand. But that's the new allocation of monies directly to cities and states around which you can lay down stuff and have billions of dollars of private development go up against it. And they're about to announce another tranche of this. The secretary announced $1 billion. They're about to come out with another one. And I know these folks are eager to understand when that's going to happen and how they can take advantage of it. So we can explain the name change really quickly.
Sure.
Just so that they know what it is, and then tell them how that's going to roll out.
So name change, from Tiger Bill to rebuilding American infrastructure with sustainability and equity. And that's what
Did you come up with that?
I was just saying that there's a mayor.
Say it again, real slow.
Rebuilding American infrastructure with sustainability and equity.
Raise, not Tiger, but they're the same. They twins. Okay, that's the same thing. All right, go ahead.
One of the first foremost, we were really excited back in this past November to announce $1 billion of raised grants in 46 states with 90 projects, and there was a common theme through all of that, which is mayors really thinking about how can they truly transform their communities to make them more livable, more sustainable, and more equitable. And that is the commitment that we're going to be putting to, which now $1.5 billion. We're going to see this bill now increases our raised capital to about 50%. And if we are successful in FY22, can go as high as $3 billion. One of the things that you asked, like, what are some of the key changes you should see in this next round? Number one, we're going to have a lot more money. Secretary Buttigieg, as he was doing the grants, he had, for every $1 he had to spend, he had $10 worth of projects that he could not spend. We are going to be able to, with this new infusion of dollars, spend and support a lot of great, highly rated, transformative projects. So that's point number one. Point number two, changes. This infrastructure bill, as you all remember, this was kind of like appropriations. It's kind of like maybe every year we may get it. It's now authorized. And so there's some new things in there that you should be mindful of because it can help impact and think about how you're going to design your projects or applications. The first thing, this round of raise will now has a new criteria called mobility and connectivity. How are we connecting people, places, and things that people really care about together, whether it's through transit, walkability, and the like. Secondly, for the first time, this grant now has a new definition for historic disadvantaged communities. It did not have that before. Normally, when you wanted to get 100% of our funding, you either had to be a rural community or in a census tract that had at least 20% of poverty over the last 3 to 5 years. Now, in addition to those carve-outs, we now can target historically disadvantaged communities with 100% of capital, funding, or in planning grants. So that's huge as you're thinking about where you want to prioritize your dollars. The last one, but not least, one of the things I will just tease, RAISE is not the only program that we're going to be rolling out in the next several weeks.
No, it's not.
RAISE is one of 4 new programs. As I mentioned, Safe Streets for All, which is a program designed specifically for the individuals here, for local governments and NPOs who are trying to do roadway fatalities. That's coming out very soon. Also, for those who are interested, we also have a new active transportation grant program. We have a new rural sustainability transportation program that mayors can apply to. We also are going to be rolling out a new mega projects program. So for those of you who are thinking, how can I go to scale? How can I actually make my city more livable? How can I bring transit not to just one neighborhood or one quarter to the entire neighborhood? You should be seeing those coming out very soon. And so RAISE is hopefully, as you saw in the last round, just a taste of what this department is planning to do over the next several weeks.
Yeah, just a little taste. Just a little taste. Y'all understand that? All right, look, we're going to close this out. I'm sorry we took you all to school today. Y'all wanted to know, so we wanted to tell you. I hope y'all wrote some of that stuff down. But But I want you, the president's coming today. He can't wait to see y'all. He loves coming to the U.S. Conference of Mayors. He'll be here in a couple hours. But he put a great team of people together. These folks here, they're unbelievable. They're the best in the business. The folks that they work directly for, who then work for the president, we all do, are incredible partners. And there were a couple things I just want to highlight. My team, we're basically doing three things. We're building a team of people that can coordinate, know how to get stuff done. We're actually delivering results to the ground right now, and then we're telling the story. The story will tell itself. We're all in the United States of America have finally figured out a way to put all of our differences down and put our jelly beans in one jar, put our pennies together so that we can invest in ourselves. Because the president understands if we invest in ourselves, nobody can beat us. Not China, not Russia, not nobody. The United States of America is going to go from being down here to being number one, which is where we're supposed to be. And this investment is part of it. That's the first thing to remember. The second thing is it can't get done without these partnerships. I just explained to you why the federal, state, and local partnership is important. And I think you've heard up here on both the federal, state, and local level, it's important that all of your agencies are talking to each other because we're all part of getting a thing done, building a place. Nothing can be done by itself. We are all dependent on each other for this to work. It's critically important. And that we're not building it back like it was. The president wants to build it back better because we have had some challenges in this country and we need to move forward. And building back better means that we all have to go forward together or we can't go forward at all. That's the whole story, folks. When is the last time you've had somebody on the federal level trying to give you so much? A long damn time. That's the answer to that question. So I would say get ready, get prepared, and let's get to work. Thank y'all. We're out of here. Gotta go.
All right, all right. In keeping with our tradition of having many cabinet members here today, or right now, this very moment, it's my pleasure to introduce the Attorney General of the United States, Merrick Garland. He has devoted practically his whole career in the pursuit of justice as a federal prosecutor for the U.S. Attorney's Office for Washington, D.C., and then in the Department of Justice, where he served in both career and non-career positions under 5 attorney generals. His responsibilities span the work of the department, including criminal, civil, and national security matters. Notably, he supervised investigations and prosecutions of national importance, including the Oklahoma City bombing, the Unabomber, and Montana Freeman cases. He served as a judge of the United States Court of Appeal for the District of Columbia for 23 years, and as chief judge for the last 7 years, he was on the bench. Under his leadership, the Department of Justice is dedicated to upholding the rule of law, keeping our country safe, and protecting the civil rights of all Americans. General Garland, it is our honor to have you here today to address America's mayors.
Good morning. Thank you for that warm welcome, and thank you, Mayor Suarez. I'm not sure where he went, for the kind introduction. And congratulations to the mayor for inauguration as the 80th president of this conference. I have deep respect for the work of the mayors. Every single day, the work you are doing in your cities. Throughout our country's history, the leadership of America's mayors has been and continues to be essential in meeting our country's greatest challenges. The COVID-19 pandemic has been no exception. No one needs to describe to you the challenges the pandemic has posed to our cities, or the stress it has placed on our public servants, who keep our communities safe, who keep our streets clean, who deliver public health services, who teach our children, who work in our court systems, and who perform all the other services essential to the functioning of government. We owe them a great debt of gratitude. I also know that the pandemic is not the only challenge facing your cities. Before I begin, I want to say a few words about the anti-Semitic terrorist attack on Congregation Beth Israel in Colleyville, Texas last Saturday. Saturday was the kind of day that mayors hope never comes, but that we at the Justice Department constantly prepare for. FBI operators, agents, negotiators, and their logistical support teams train rigorously. FBI and Justice Department supervisors repeatedly run crisis scenarios, and Joint Terrorism Task Force run countless exercises to develop and foster cooperation among federal, state, and local law enforcement. I cannot say enough about how important that last point is, as anyone watching events as they unfolded could see. The many hours that the FBI and local police departments spend planning together for these kinds of crises are critical to saving lives when the unthinkable occurs. I want to recognize the incredible bravery of Rabbi Citron Walker and his congregants who used the skills they learned in active shooter trainings to respond to this terrible event. I want to recognize the incredible courage of local law enforcement officers and federal agents on the ground in Texas, including members of the hostage rescue team, who went into a building knowing that inside was a man with a gun who said he had 2 bombs and was expecting to die. And I want to assure you that even in this case, our work is not done. The FBI is now working full-time to determine whether this perpetrator acted alone or with others. On the morning after the attack, I briefed President Biden on the Justice Department's response to the attack and on our ongoing efforts to evaluate the full range of threats that our country faces. The President's resolve was clear. We will not tolerate this. We will not tolerate attacks on synagogues or other houses of worship. We will not tolerate violence or threats of violence fueled by anti-Semitism, hatred, racism, or bigotry of any kind. Keeping our country safe and the American people safe is a core priority of the United States Department of Justice. A critical part of keeping our country safe is protecting it from foreign and domestic terrorism. These are dangers that Justice Department law enforcement components work against all day, every day. And as I have said, they are dangers that we work against together with our state and local partners, without whom we cannot succeed. Another important part of keeping our country safe is working alongside all of you to protect our communities from violent crime, and particularly the scourge of gun violence. At the Justice Department, we stand shoulder to shoulder with you in the fight against violent crime, and we will use every tool at our disposal to protect our communities. Last year, the department launched a comprehensive anti-violent crime strategy aimed at harnessing our resources of every relevant component in the department, including our United States Attorney's offices, our litigating divisions, all of our law enforcement agencies, and our grant-making offices. Recognizing the importance of anti-violent crime strategies that are tailored to individual communities, we directed each United States Attorney's office to work with its state and local partners to address the crime problem in those communities. As a result, the FBI, ATF, DEA, and U.S. Marshal Service partnered with state and local agencies and police departments to embed agents in homicide units, confiscate illegal firearms, disrupt violent drug trafficking, and provide other support where needed. We also strengthened our Cornerstone initiative to reduce violent crime at the community level called Project Safe Neighborhoods, which brings together mayors, police chiefs, other local agencies, and our United States attorneys to develop solutions to the most pressing violent crime problems facing the communities. The department well understands that it is our mayors and their police departments who shoulder much of the work to disrupt and deter violent crime in their own cities. So last year, we awarded $310 million in funding through the department's COPS office to directly support our law enforcement partners. This included more than $139 million to the COPS hiring program, which provides funding to cities and towns to hire more law enforcement officers and put more resources to work building community trust. We also understand that our society frequently turns to law enforcement to address a wide array of social problems. Too often, police officers are the first ones called when someone is experiencing a mental health crisis. Such calls unnecessarily lead to difficult and dangerous confrontations. That is why we will continue to support programs to provide alternative approaches to engaging with people with problems that are better handled by non-law enforcement professionals. We also know that promoting public trust between communities and law enforcement is essential to making both communities and policing safer. The department will continue to fulfill its duties to ensure the constitutional policing practices that promote the accountability necessary to build that public trust. I strongly believe, as I am sure you do, that good officers want to work in systems that do not permit bad practices. So in addition to our enforcement efforts, we are committed to providing financial support and technical assistance to our law enforcement partners to implement policies and trainings that promote accountability and best policing practices. In the year ahead, we will continue this work. The President's budget request for FY22 includes a substantial increase in funding for the department to combat violent crime and gun violence, including the resources we will make available to mayors and police departments nationwide. That includes $1 billion in grants to support local police departments and to help them build trust with the communities they serve. In addition, we are doubling down on our commitment to support and strengthen Project Safe Neighborhoods and give mayors and police chiefs the tools they need to reduce violent crime. While many of the public safety challenges our cities face require a unique and tailored approach, gun violence is a universal challenge and one that demands comprehensive action. Over the past 10 months, the Justice Department has taken a number of actions to prevent and disrupt the illegal use and trafficking of firearms. We proposed a new rule to curb the proliferation of ghost guns. We published model gun safety legislation for the states. We established a new policy to strictly hold gun dealers accountable for willful violations of the law. We launched 5 cross-jurisdictional strike forces to disrupt illegal firearms trafficking in key corridors across the country. Just over 2 weeks ago, we announced a new rule to enhance safe storage of firearms that builds on our efforts to reduce the risk of firearms falling into the wrong hands. And as part of the President's FY22 budget request, we are seeking $1.6 billion in funding for ATF. Included are funds that would expand ATF's crime gun intelligence centers through the National Integrated Ballistic Information Network that city police departments use every day to trace crime guns. Also included are funds that would double ATF's capacity to investigate thefts from federal firearms licensees. You all know, as well as I do, that every firearm stolen from a licensed dealer poses a threat to community safety and to our law enforcement partners. The Justice Department's anti-violent crime strategy and our initiatives to stem the rising tide of illegal guns will help save lives. But we know full well that to succeed, all of us at the Justice Department and in mayors' offices and police departments across the country must work together. Finally, yet another important part of keeping the American people safe is protecting those who serve the public from violence and unlawful threats of violence. We have all seen that Americans who serve and interact with the public at every level, many of whom make our democracy work every day, have been targeted with violence and threats of violence. These are our fellow citizens who administer our elections, ensure our safe travel, teach our children, report the news, represent their constituencies, and keep our communities safe. The very least we can do is to commit keeping them safe. Peacefully expressing a view or ideology, no matter how vociferously or how extreme, is protected by the First Amendment. But illegally threatening to harm or kill another person is not. There is no First Amendment right to unlawfully threaten to harm or kill someone. And bitter historical experience has made clear that the time to address threats is when they occur, not after a tragedy has struck. The Justice Department will continue to do all it can to hold accountable those who target public servants with violence or illegal threats of violence. Indeed, today, we are taking law enforcement action to that end. But as with everything I have spoken about today, we know that success in stopping this kind of violence also depends on close cooperation with our local partners, who bear the lion's share of the burden of protecting the people of their cities. The United States Department of Justice is grateful to count our country's mayors as our partners in all of our work to keep our country and our communities safe. I appreciate the opportunity to join with you today. I look forward to our continuing work together in the days to come. Thank you.
Thank you so much, General Garland, for your commitment to justice and to America's cities and their mayors. We hope that this is the first of many meetings we will have with you. It is now my honor, well, before we go there, we're gonna go off script a little bit. Yeah, yeah, I like that. Tom was backstage and he said, you know what, Mr. Mayor, why don't you bring me up because I want to go a little off script. So Tom, why don't you come up and do something special?
Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to bring out the real Mayor Suarez, Francis's father, the former mayor of Miami, Xavier Suarez.
I had nothing planned for this, and Francis's charisma, I want you to know, comes 99% from his mom. But I said, can I tell one Washington, D.C. story? And I arrived here in 1961, the ninth of 14 kids. My father said, you know, we got to get you the best school in Washington, D.C., because, you know, he tests well and all that stuff. And he takes me to St. Anselm's. It used to be called Priory. And so the Benedictine headmaster, the old English system, you know, headmaster says, we got to, my dad starts saying, I'm Dr. Suarez. I went to Villanova University in Philadelphia. I was a dean of engineering in Cuba. And the headmaster says, we don't admit the students based on their father's merits here in the United States. You know, Cuban father, you know. So we got to give him a test. They gave me a test. Brings it back, shows it to my dad. He says, you know, there's a math and a verbal part like every other test. good thing your son is very good in math, because in the English part, there was a question that said, of the following 4 words, which one does not belong with the other 3? And the words were stream, river, creek, and mustard. And he put a big red circle around it. I had it wrong. That was 1961. Later, I went to all kinds of places, but that's the American dream. I came to this country as a refugee. 25 years later, I was allowed to be a citizen, run for office, and be elected mayor of the city of Miami. I won't tell you. I won't tell you how many times I lost, but Francis says that I learn more from my defeats than I do from my victories, and I guess there's some truth to that. So anyhow, it's an honor to be here with you all. I had not prepared to do anything here or speak at all, but it is a great honor, and you guys have a fantastic organization. I know Tom from way back. I can tell you some stories of some things we did when I was in the conference, but we'll leave that for another time. Thank you, and God bless you all.
By the way, yesterday I counted and he ran 15 times. I'm not going to tell you the wins and loss records because then I will not hear the end of it on the flight back. It's now my honor to announce this year's innovation grants winners for our mayor's Dollar-Wise Economic Mobility Campaign, made possible by our founding sponsor, Bank of America. The Dollar-Wise campaign is dedicated to helping vulnerable families and individuals climb the economic ladder by removing barriers to mobility, creating educational and economic opportunity, and building long-term tangible assets. Dollar-Wise focuses on areas such as eliminating excessive fines and fees, expunging judicial records that can stymie opportunity for a lifetime, helping immigrant communities build professional careers, assisting minorities and women-owned businesses, promoting homeownership assistance, digital literacy, and much more. Our objective is to identify and address some of the systemic issues that impact economic mobility. Dollar-Wise also supports new and innovative economic mobility efforts by helping cities scale their programs statewide and nationwide. The campaign works closely with mayors to develop cutting-edge research that cities can use to design and implement new economic mobility strategies. The conference thanks hundreds of mayors across the country who support Dollar-Wise and promote its programming in their cities. I'd also like to thank Bank of America for their generous and ongoing support of the Dollar-Wise Economic Mobility Campaign. Our partnership with Bank of America in the campaign has made a real difference in thousands of lives, and we look forward to our further collaboration. We encourage all mayors to sign up for Dollar-Wise programming at our booth in the lobby. You'll be glad you did it. Now on to our Innovation Grant Awards. This year, Dollar-Wise is awarding grants of $10,000 each to 7 cities, bringing our total to over 100 grants awarded since 2005. Our first Dollar-Wise winner is Clarksville Mayor Joe Pitts. Whose award will help develop a new microenterprise development program that will help the city's most underserved communities build new businesses and create jobs. Mayor Pitts, congratulations. Next is my man, Denver Mayor Michael Hancock, who will receive a Dollar-Wise. Hey, you got some friends in the audience, brother. Will receive a Dollar-Wise grant to provide underserved residents with internet connectivity and digital literacy training through the city's Tech Loaner Laptop Program. Congratulations, Mayor Hancock. Hempstead Mayor Waylon Hobbs Jr. will receive a grant to expand his city's homeowner stabilization initiative, which provides pathways to homeownership for economically vulnerable residents. Mayor Hobbs, congratulations. Lauderdale Lakes Mayor Hazel Rogers will receive a dollar-wise grant to develop a home buyers club, which will provide financial education training to potential new homeowners in underserved neighborhoods. Congratulations, Mayor Rogers. Former president of our conference, Louisville Mayor Greg Fisher, will receive a grant to support the city's Economic Mobility Lab, a data-driven citywide effort dedicated to helping underserved residents address barriers to economic mobility while promoting racial justice and equity. Congratulations, President Fisher. Nashua Mayor Jim Donches will receive a grant to expand the Arlington Street Community Center, which offers free childcare for underserved families, not free children for underserved families. That would be weird. While providing counseling services in multiple languages. Mayor John Chess, congratulations. Yeah, I'll take half a dozen free children, please. Thank you. And Pittsburgh Mayor Ed Gainey will receive a grant to create an initiative for African American women to make long-term investments in the stock market with the goal of building intergenerational wealth. Mayor Gainey, congratulations. Now let's have a round of applause for our 2022 Dollar-Wise Innovation Grant winners. But of course, none of this would be possible without our funding and founding sponsor, Bank of America. Clap for Bank of America. You guys work for Bank of America? No, I'm just kidding. From Bank of America, we have here today Brian Putler. Please put your hands together for Brian.
Thank you, Mayor Suarez. It's a pleasure to be here. Bank of America is proud to be the longtime sponsor or founding sponsor of DollarWise, and we are particularly enthusiastic about the Innovation Grant Awards. Bank of America and the mayors, we appreciate your partnership on matters having to do with economic mobility because it's so important to your residents and to our customers. So thank you very much, and congratulations to the mayors who received grants today.
All right, thank you, Brian, and I want to thank all our guests for being with us this morning. While this session is adjourned, we're going to be right back in this room for our closing lunch featuring our former colleague, Secretary of Labor and good friend, former Boston Mayor, Marty Walsh, and of course, the President of the United States. So, coming soon. Thanks.
Mayors and guests, we have a tight turnaround set for lunch, so please exit the ballroom at this time and prepare to come back at noon. Everyone who exits the second floor will have to go through security again. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, please exit the ballroom at this time. Thank you for your cooperation.